Ladies and gentlemen, week 10 of the 2024 NFL season is in the book. Your boy's here to talk about it.
Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Stees! Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue, think and slate, dropping unrealistic magic. 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the millie, never hear me preach, flip on to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals that feel the day.
Good evening, folks. Week 10 is in the book, so it's time to me officially welcome you to the NFL Week 10 recap with Nicky Stees, both on the Nicky Stees and Hardcore Sports Network YouTube channels. As always, the link to both channels is in the chat for anyone who hasn't subscribed to either channel. But as always, let's dive into it. We started off the week with a bang on Thursday night between division rivals in the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals and Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens defeated the Bengals in a close game that came down to the wire in the shootout. It ended with the Bengals scoring a nice touchdown right at the end of the game to make it one, but they decided to go for two and try to win it, but fell short. However, though, it was still an excellent game and a great way to start off the week. And for the Ravens, hey, excellent game, right? For the Ravens, it's a much needed win, right, to stay in pace in the AFC with Kansas City. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, man, it was a good game. It's the second time this season you played a hard-fought game in a high-scoring contest, but could not get the win. And then this matchup, we had both QBs, Burrow and Jackson, combined for a total of over 700 passing yards. So credit to both QBs for giving it their all in this game and help their team win. But the Cincinnati Bengals, man, two things they're missing the most is help on defense and a good run game. Now, hopefully Tyreek Cohen can come in for them and help bolster their run game, but that still doesn't fix their woes on defense, man. You saw against the division rival, the Baltimore Ravens, twice. They played in shootouts and just could not outscore the Ravens to win either game. They couldn't. So now you're in a tough spot at the Bengals. Now you're struggling. You're looking at a 4-6 campaign. While they're not eliminated from the playoffs at all, still 4-6 puts you in an uphill battle the rest of the way to try to get a playoff spot. And from here, they're looking at the Bengals schedule. They got the Chargers next, then the Steelers. This could look like tough games. I mean, the Chargers could be a winnable game as long as their offense gets going. And then the Steelers, that's going to be a tough game because they got the bye week. And then you get the Cowboys after the Steelers and the Titans and the Browns. So you do get a 3-game easy stretch there in December. And then they do get the Broncos on December 29th in week 17, which could have an implication on the 7th spot in the AFC playoff picture. But more on that later. For the Baltimore Ravens, man, hey, it's a nice win. You're 7-3 now. You're still on pace But you got to hope for some luck, though, for Kansas to get the number 1 seed to get home field advantage again, because Kansas City's still undefeated, and they've had the Ravens' number, including narrowly beating them week 1. But for the Ravens, the best thing to do at this point is just keep on winning. You got the win. You defeated your division rival Cincinnati Bengals for the second time, but now you got the Steelers. That's going to be a tough game. That's a must-win game for the Ravens. Then you got the Chargers after that, and then the Eagles December 1st. So they're looking like 3 tough games ahead, possibly for the Ravens. But hey, the Ravens found a way to win. They're 7-3, but now here comes the true test for them. But again, it was a great offensive performance by the quarterbacks in this game. The running backs, Derrick Henry did score another touchdown, but he didn't really have a great game necessarily, but it is what it is, though. But the Ravens come through in a big win. So congratulations to the Baltimore Ravens on getting the win. For the Cincinnati Bengals, man, they're going to have to find some ways to win some games going forward. And for the Ravens, hey, you're pretty good contention at 7-3. Now your schedule gets harder. Let's see if you can keep that momentum going. And we're going to talk about division rivals. Let's talk about the NFC South. You got Younghoe Koo missed 3 field goals, and the Falcons lost to the Saints in a 3-point loss. That otherwise, you're potentially talking about the Falcon. If he just makes one of those 3 kicks, you're going to overtime. If he makes 2 of those 3 missed kicks, only misses 1, they win that game by a score 23-20. But they find after starting off 6-3, they lose to the New Orleans Saints. Now, granted, the Falcons aren't the strongest team in the NFL. They're a talented team, but they're not the strongest all-around team. So they were eventually due for a loss, but against the New Orleans Saints, off special teams blunders, that's an embarrassing way to lose a game. And like I said, I understand, hey, man, they were going to lose eventually, but to the Saints, that's not that great. But the good news is they're still in first place in their division. You still got the Panthers and the struggling Saints in the same division as them. The Bucs are on a 4-game losing streak. Hope isn't too high for them right now. So it could still work out. And going here, though, they got the Broncos. Could be a winnable bounce back game. But who knows? Then you got the Chargers December 1st. Then you got the Vikings, which the way the Vikings have played their last 2 games, that could be a winnable game. Raiders should be a win. Giants, short of Christmas, should be a win. Then the 29th, they got the Commanders. That's looking like a tougher game than when the schedule was put together. Let's just say that. And then the Panthers. But either way for the Falcons, man, it's an embarrassing loss against a tanking Saints team that's clearly playing for the future. But for the Atlanta Falcons, you just got to put this one behind you and hope that this special team blunder doesn't happen again. I hope they can get a little bit more going on offense. Because, yes, Younghoe Koo is part of it too. But Kirk Cousins, he didn't have any touchdown passes in this game. We got to focus on that as well. We can't just solely blame the kicker. I mean, yeah, the kicker plays a part in it, but it's not going to solely be the kicker's fault. You got to also look at the inability to get the ball downfield more and get more points or get more touchdowns. So I'm not going to solely blame this on Younghoe Koo. We can also put this part on the special teams. But for the Falcons, it's a tough loss, but hope they can bounce back from it. And then you get also the game of the afternoon. The Pittsburgh Steelers defeat the Washington Commanders 28-27 in a close back-and-forth game that was what we thought it would be. And credit to the Steelers, man. They did what they had to do. They rallied. They were down 10 in the third. They found a way to win. Get George Pickens looking like the top receiver in the offense. Russell Wilson's looking solid as a quarterback in the Steelers system. He's not playing like he was in Denver. He's not playing like prime Russell Wilson in Seattle either, but hey, he shows he still has something left in the tank. It's one of those situations of you put a quarterback in a more favorable situation, you see what they can do. And let's face it, part of the problem, too, with Denver was coaching there played a big role in it as well with Russell Wilson. Years he had Nathaniel Hackett, who was clearly not a qualified head coach. And then Sean Payton, let's be honest, Sean Payton and Russell Wilson just weren't on the same page. Sean Payton wasn't a fan of the guy. So now Russ is going into a better situation with Mike Tomlin, who he clearly has better rapport with than he did with Sean Payton last year in Denver. And Russell Wilson's looking like a quarterback that can still produce and help lead an NFL team and make them contenders. But it also helps that you have an excellent defense around them too. You still have some good pieces there like Patrick Queen, Joey Porter Jr., Mika Fitzpatrick, still a solid, Cameron Hayward, TJ Watt. I mean, when he's on the field, I mean, all these guys are still, they got a solid core on defense. And the running game, you still got Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris going for solid effort for over 100 yards combined on a total of 35 carries. So the Steelers had some semblance of the run game and a decent pass game too. But it was good enough to beat the Commanders. And this was a good team win for the Steelers. Helped build confidence going forward. Now, you defeated one of the top teams in the NFC. You built momentum in your favor going forward. So kudos to the Steelers. And for the Commanders, it's a loss, but they still look like an excellent team there in the NFC. And they're going to give us a run for our money on Thursday, which I'll talk about that more when I preview my team, the Philadelphia Eagles game against the Washington Commanders. Actually, I'm going to do it Thursday afternoon hours before kickoff. So I'll create the live stream after this one and set it for noon Thursday. But the Steelers, congratulations on a good win. The Commanders, it's a tough loss, but it's not the end of the world. You're still 6-4. You still have a shot at winning the NFC East, and you still look like you have a bright future with Jayden Daniels. But hey, all around, this was another good game. Hey, so leave it at that. Congrats to the Steelers. We'll see where both teams go from here. Steelers are on to the Ravens. Commanders on to play my team, the Eagles, at the Link Thursday night. We'll see where they go from there. And speaking of teams in the NFC, you got the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Christian McCaffrey is back. In his return, he had a solid outing here. While he didn't score any touchdowns, McCaffrey still looked pretty solid on the field. He still looked like a formative weapon in the offense. But man, for your San Francisco 49ers, while you did struggle early, sure, it was looking ugly early on in the season, but now you're in a position, you're 5-4, you're one game back. It's only because you've had your bye week before the Cardinals. You still have the opportunity to get your revenge against the Cardinals for your loss to them earlier in the season. And they could still find a way to win that division, especially with the Rams losing to the Dolphins. Their confidence is a bit shaken now. For the 49ers, you got Christian McCaffrey back in the offense. Now, maybe this could be the time of year where they start to get back into a rhythm and they could start to slowly come back to form to what they were last year on their run to the Super Bowl. And so maybe this could be the start of the 49ers slowly morphing back into contenders. But it was it was a competitive game though. But at the same time now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we got to talk about them a little bit. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers now have dropped 4 straight games after a 4-2 start. This is an ugly predicament for the Bucs now. And I'm starting to look like more and more that Baker Mayfield contract extension was not a good decision. It's like, yeah, I understand he looked good at the time, but it's not really the long-term answer now, is he? Not a good call there. But for the Buccaneers, we'll see what they have to do. They have to salvage what they have left. Hopefully, like Baker Mayfield, he's got to find a way to take that next step to actually get Tampa Bay to win these games. Because you played back-to-back weeks against the 2 conference champions. The previous week, week 10, against the AFC conference champion Niners, the week before against the AFC and defending Super Bowl champ Kansas City, but they couldn't close out and win these games. The Bucs have to find a way to do better and close out. And they're also going to need a little bit of luck too in terms of playoff seeding, because remember, they lost twice to the Falcons. So if they finish with the same record, by default, Falcons will win the division on a tiebreaker. So the Bucs, you just have to win out from here and hope the Falcons continue to lose. Or at least win out to at least have a shot at a playoff berth. And for the Niners, hey, hopefully now, for their sake, if you're a Niners fan, you hope they're coming back to form and that things are looking up. But you still got a solid team there. And speaking of the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals dismantled the New York Jets by a score 31-6. And this was the worst performance for the Jets as a team this season. Rodgers in the post-game press conference, he seemed like he was ducking the questions. Now, here's what it was. They were asking Rodgers about how he feels. He said he feels a range of emotions. He's not going to get into it because it's too much. He'll answer another time. Some generic ducking, talking about it answer. I don't think he's going to address it at a later date, but yeah, the Jets are looking dead in the water. Well, the Cardinals, they're in first place in the NFC West, and their schedule gets easier from here. And for Kyler Murray, hey, you have yourselves at Kyler Murray. Let's not forget, he's still a solid quarterback. Sure, we made fun of him for his love of Call of Duty. We talked about the contract clause, and yes, that was a bad clause. Talked about how Murray, was going to be rusty, but we even saw last year with the Cardinals when Kyler came back late in the season, last season, the Cardinals did look competitive. They found a way to win a few games despite ultimately being one of the worst teams in the league. And that allowed them to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray. Now, hey, this season, he's looking all right. 12, passing wise, he got over 2,000 passing yards, 12 TDs, 3 interceptions, 75.7 QBR. But hey, he's still one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Sure, he's not an elite quarterback. He's not a top tier guy like Mahomes. Sure, he's not the top of the food chain. He's not at the level of a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson or even a Jalen Hurts at this point. But Kyler Murray is still one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and we can't underestimate this Cardinals team, especially now seeing them at 6-4 with Kyler Murray fully healthy. And a Cardinals team who's got an easier schedule. Let's take a look at the Cardinals schedule real quickly, see what they got left. So from here, the Cardinals got a bye week coming up. Then they got, before Thanksgiving, you got the Seahawks. Then you got the Vikings. Then you got the Seahawks again. The 2 of their next 3 is against Seahawks. Vikings are looking kind of iffy right now, despite their winning record. Patriots should be an easy game. Then the Panthers. They got the Rams who look kind of iffy. And then they close out with the 49ers. But most of those games are winnable games for the Cardinals at this point. You're at 6-4 point with an easier road ahead. That could be the gateway for the Cardinals to possibly win out their division. So good for the Cardinals and for the Jets. Let's face it, I'm done with the Jets, all right? There's no point in me even talk about them. Last year, everyone was hyping him up because of Rodgers. And if he didn't get injured, okay, maybe last year they would have stood a chance. But this year, Rodgers, 1 year removed from a major injury, clearly he's not that guy anymore. They went all in for a quarterback, but they went all in for the wrong guy. Ask me if this drill sounds familiar. Moving along. We're moving along to the class of the NFC. We had ourselves a hell of a game. The Detroit Lions come back to defeat the Houston Texans by a score of 26-23 when they were down 23-7. I mean, Jared Goff had some flashbacks to his rookie season and his first season with the Lions in this one. However, hey, the Detroit Lions find a way to win. That's what great teams do. You went on the road in a tough battle, and they found a way to win. And to me, that's all that really matters at the end of the day is you find ways to win games no matter what. And that's exactly what the Detroit Lions did. You still have a good run game. Jared Goff, yes, he didn't have the greatest game in the world, but he did enough at the end to help lead them to a victory. He threw 2 TDs, but 5 INTs. This is a game that Goff's got to put behind him. The Jahmyr Gibbs still had 71 yards on the ground, so they still had a good enough run game to help them out. CJ Stroud had 2, crazy to think, 2 of the top passing quarterbacks in the league when their 2 teams match respectively combined for 3 touchdowns and 7 interceptions combined. It's crazy to think that, but it happened. But either way, hey, the running game mostly did the work, and the special teams mostly did the work here for these 2 teams. But at the end of the day, Detroit Lions find a way to win, move to 8-1. Texans are now 6-4. They've come crashing down a little bit. No Stephon Diggs, but now you do have Monday night. You got the Cowboys. And then on the 24th, you got the Titans. Those 2 look like 2 winnable games. That should get them back on record for 8-4. Then you got the Jaguars. All right, now your Texans should at least have 3 easy games from here to help them get over this rough stretch. But for the Detroit Lions, man, things are looking like they're on the up. Now you got the Jaguars and then the Colts next. That could possibly be 10-1 right here. But for the Detroit Lions, man, right now, Detroit Lions, Kansas City Chiefs looking like the two best teams in the NFL. So I got to give them props on that. And then we move on. The Rams, disappointing performance against the Miami Dolphins on Monday night. The Dolphins find a way to win this ugly fashion. I mean, there was just a lot of field goals in this one. Not a whole lot to write home about. The Rams, to me, they just don't look like a complete team. Sure, they worked their way back into it when people took them for granted, but I think primetime matchup, now that the Rams were 4-4, I think the Dolphins, came in, kind of expected them to play well, and Dolphins did what they needed to. I mean, Tua Tagovailoa, Dolphins are clearly a much better team with them. Tyreek Hill found the end zone, and now that, Tua's back, the Dolphins might be more competitive, might win some games. I think it all a little too late, but they're finding ways to win games. And what we're going to do right here, I'm going to take a quick break for a minute. When I come back, we're going to try a different format. We're going to close this out, talk about the winners and losers following Week 10. So we'll be back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back after a quick break. This time we're going to close off in a different format. We're going to talk about the winners and losers so far through Week 10 in this NFL season. We're not just going to breeze through the 2-minute. We'll still do the 2-minute recap, but let's go through the winners and losers real quickly, shall we? So we're going to talk about the team. We're going to take a look at some of the standings real quickly, see where teams stand. So let's start with the Pro Bowl through the division standings. This is via IG from the NFL's page. So here we go. 6 hours ago, this was put in. Let's take a look. So you got the AFC, got the top Buffalo Bills defeating the Indianapolis Colts 30-20. Now moved to 8-2. Dolphins get a win. Jets and Patriots are at the bottom of the division as dumpster fire teams. AFC South, well, the Texans have come crashing down a bit. You still got the Tennessee Titans, Jacksonville Jaguars, Indianapolis Colts. That should still help them out. Got the AFC North. You got the Steelers, Ravens, You got the Bengals and Browns. Then the AFC West, you got the Chiefs. I know. Then you got the Chargers. Then the Broncos and the Raiders. Well, Kansas City obviously still on top. Defending Super Bowl champions are 9-0. So right now in the AFC, clearly the top teams right now are the Kansas City Chiefs, Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, and Buffalo Bills are the main four teams in that conference. I mean, obviously it's more low conference, but the AFC North's going to be interesting because this upcoming week you got the Steelers and Ravens. That game could easily be the deciding factor of who's going to win the AFC North. This Week 11 matchup between the Ravens and Steelers could be that deciding factor, as well as the rematch later. Those are the two games that'll decide that division for. And then you got, of course, the Buffalo Bills. They're in cruise control right now. They're got a favorable, they're in a favorable situation with the Dolphins, Jets, and Patriots. They should at least win out the division. Texans, that should be another division they went out. Chiefs should win out their division, but the Chargers at 6-3, looking at the way things are going, they should be in contention to at least make the playoffs, but we'll have to see what happens. NFC, the Eagles, Commanders are at top, 7 wins in their respective divisions. Wait, correcting, that's 7-3, not 6-4 for the Commanders. As I said earlier, then you got Falcons still in first. Now I can look at Cowboys, Giants out, Saints, Panthers out. Of course, you got Eagles and Commanders. It's going to be the upcoming matchup. We'll talk about that Thursday. Falcons, they still got a favorable schedule. They could probably still at least win out their division, maybe get the 4th seed. Cardinals, they're 6-4. Their schedule getting easier from here. They could find a way to possibly cruise to the division title or a wild card seed. Then you got the NFC North with the Lions, Vikings, Packers. All those teams could potentially be playoff teams. But you're looking at it right now with the way it's set up here in the NFC, there's easily a good chance that somebody's going to miss out between the NFC East, NFC North, and NFC West. Somebody with a winning record could very easily miss out on the playoffs. It could possibly be either the team that finishes second in the NFC East, the team that finishes third in the NFC North, or the team that finishes second in the NFC West. It could easily be one of those 14, could be somebody in one of those 3 divisions missing out on the playoffs with a winning record, possibly, the way things are looking right now. Because the Packers, they're still in decent position at 6-3. They could, they did have their bye week, but they could come back still fun. They're still finding ways to win games. They could still probably get to 9 or 10 wins at least. Vikings are 7-2. They've been playing ugly lately, but they could probably still win a few more games. And then you got the 49ers. They're starting to get better again. I think, like I said, the Cardinals and 49ers are in favorable position to win out the rest of the way. So it's going to be a tough battle up there in that NFC to see. You could possibly get the 5, 6, 7, or either third place in NFC North or second in the NFC West. That could be possibly the 7th seed. Or it could be right. There's a lot of different scenarios right now I could be looking at, though. But it's going to be a tough race right there for the wild card. Whereas the AFC, it kind of looks a little more clear-cut right here. It's like you're probably Dolphins, unlikely. And the only reason I say unlikely is, remember they did have that one season they finished 9-8 after an ugly 1-7 start. I don't think that's going to happen again, but stranger things have happened. So you never know if the Dolphins do a miraculous turnaround. I doubt it, but, stranger things could happen. But it's looking most likely. You got, obviously, whoever doesn't win the AFC North and whoever finishes second between the Steelers and Ravens would finish and get the 5th seed. And then the Chargers, probably the 6th seed most likely. The 7th seed, it could come down to the Bengals, Broncos. Especially if the Bengals start to turn things around, win some games. The Broncos maybe lose a few more games. That could work out in favor of the Bengals getting the 7th seed. Or maybe the Broncos do enough to get the 7th seed. Or who knows, maybe the Colts surprise us and get the 7th seed. I doubt it, but Overall, though, that's looking a little more clear cut. It's looking like it's most likely second place in the AFC North, Chargers, and then 7th seed coming down to either the Broncos, or the Bengals, most likely. Whereas the NFC, like I said, you look, it's a lot tougher up there. But overall, so far, the winners and losers clearly thus far through 10 weeks are the NFC, obviously Eagles, Commanders, especially the Commanders exceeding expectations, doing better than we thought they would. Detroit Lions were the class of the NFC. Minnesota Vikings, I mean, they've won 7 games without a long-term starting quarterback. They're still here, and they've been ugly the last couple times, but still 7-2 without a long-term quarterback is still impressive. I mean, like I said, Packers done pretty solid thus far. I mean, I guess the Cardinals, I'll consider them winners because, like we said, if you follow their schedule, they have an easy schedule. So I'll consider them winners for making it through the toughest part of their season with a 6-4 record. Winners AFC, kind of self-explanatory. Bills, Steelers, Ravens, Chiefs, Chargers so far. But mainly the 4 team, the 3 division, the Steelers, Ravens, Chiefs, and Bills. But those are looking like the winners so far. What I wanted to do real quickly while we're still on the subject of playoff pictures, let's take a look at what the playoff picture would look like if the season ended today. Obviously, this is not official, but here's take a quick look. One moment, here we go. So this is what the playoff picture would look like the season ended today. Obviously, Kansas City, Detroit would be the 2 home field seeds in their respective conferences. And then you have the Eagles and Packers, 2 versus 7. And then the AFC would be Buffalo and the Broncos. And then it would be the Falcons with the 3 seed against the Commanders. And the Steelers versus the Chargers. And the Texans versus the Ravens, 4 versus 5. Then would be the Vikings versus the Cardinals, 4 versus 5. It's interesting to wonder the 3 wild card matches that would be now if the season, when it does end. Will any of these matchups possibly happen? Will it? I don't. And the only reason I'm pulling the screen from you guys is because I saw a comment on the Instagram comments that I'm not even going to repeat, and I don't want YouTube flagging it for that. So sorry if I pulled the screen down seemingly premature, but I did it because of a comment that was left there that I didn't want to be seen that I noticed. I'm not even going to make reference to the comment, but yeah, it's kind of curious. Possibly we could get some of those matchups. Maybe Chargers Steelers could happen. Maybe, if the Steelers went out, then maybe it could be Texans Ravens in Houston. Maybe we do get possibly, a 2 versus 7 matchup. Maybe the Broncos do play the Bills. Or maybe it's the Bengals versus the Bills. Who knows? Or maybe it's maybe the Steelers get the 2 seed. I mean, at this point, that's obviously not going to be official, but we're kind of getting an idea. At least we could say half those teams on that list at least are going to make the playoffs. Right there. Like, we can all pretty much say Kansas City, Detroit, Buffalo, and I know I'm jumping from conferences. The Eagles and Commanders should. Vikings should. But, those teams should at least make the playoffs. Steelers, Ravens should. So those are teams that at least should make the playoffs. But we're going to see what happens, though. I feel like those are mainly the winners and losers here for this week. And now, before I go, we're going to close this out, do the 2-minute recap before we get going. And we got Daniel Berry stopping by in the chat right toward the end. Daniel Berry, always a supporter in the chat during my streams. Now let's close out 2-minute recap. Talk about the Chicago Bears. Remember when they started 4-2? Remember when we thought they had hope? Oh boy, those were the days, weren't they? Oh boy. But hey, the Chicago Bears, what an embarrassment losing to the Patriots. They couldn't get any offense going. Any offense. I understand it's Caleb Williams' rookie year, but the way they look as a team, it's looking like this is going to be another situation. It was funny because Greenberg was going off on ESPN about the Bears being an organization that can't get out of their own way. Shout out to Football Talk with Bo. He uploaded it as a YouTube short on his channel where he's just going off about it. And matter of fact, what I will do is I'll share the link to it in the chat if you guys want to watch it yourself. But the Bears, man, what a terrible way to go out. What a terrible way. I mean, losing the Patriots. Now I feel like hope's lost temporarily for the season. And for the Jets, like I said, I gave up on them. I'm not even going to talk about them at this point. What I do want to talk about is Dak Prescott out for the season. I mean, Dak, it's a tough break for the Cowboys, and they were already a struggling team anyway, but this was the price of what happens when you go all when you're in with a talented roster but can't get that Super Bowl. Eventually, you're going to come crashing down. You're going to have to start over. And for the Cowboys, let's be honest, this isn't even me being an Eagles fan, being a smart ass. You know, it is kind of funny from my point of view. Honestly, Cowboys fans, you got to restart and reboot it, honestly. But those are the other two major headlines. The Bears come crashing down hard to reality, and the Cowboys, they're going to have to try Trey Lance and see what he can do. But hey, it's a tough break for both teams. I'll leave it at that. So to everyone that tuned in, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the stream. As always, we're kicking it here on Nicky Stees and the Hardcore Sports Network channels. Thanks to everyone that stops by the streams. Even though it wasn't as much tonight as it usually is, thanks for stopping by. Tomorrow, I'll be live, Pick and Roll podcast for the NBA fans, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Episode 97 coming up. So make sure you guys tune in for that one right there. So we'll be rocking with it tomorrow. We'll talk about day one of the eighth season tournament, which is tonight. So again, thanks for everyone that tuned in. Hope you enjoy the rest of your night. Whether you caught this live or on replay, make sure to drop a like. Enjoy the rest of your night or day, depending on which time you're catching it. Until next time, it's your boy Nicky Stees signing off. Peace.